Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NEC On The Run podcast. Alongside Ralph Ventre, I'm Kyle Turner, and today we're talking women's basketball. Ralph, give me an update on where they stand.
Well, as always, at the top of the show, we take a look at the conference standings, and the first place occupant has not changed. Last week, Bryant was 6-0, the last remaining unbeaten. This week, they're still unbeaten. They are 8-0 at the top of the league. But watch out, Bulldogs. Sacred Heart is red hot. The Pioneers lost their NEC opener at Robert Morris, but have won 7 in a row since. Bryant's number 1 at 8-0. Pioneers only 1 game off that pace. Now we also need to take a look at a pair of 500 teams, Kyle. Fairleigh Dickinson and Central Connecticut State. These two teams were picked to finish in the top half of the league standings, in the top half of the preseason poll, and now it looks as if they're starting their climb up the ladder. Fairleigh Dickinson took care of business at home this past week, winning back-to-back games for the first time all season. They even the record at 4-4. Central Connecticut, back-to-back wins as well. They're 500. FDU, CCSU in the tie for the 5th spot, looking to break into that top 4 where the coaches poll said they would be. And the one thing that really sticks out about these two teams is how their defense came alive last week. Central Connecticut allowed 80 points in 2 games, 40 points per contest allowed. It's hard to lose when the other team isn't even getting past the 40-point mark. And the FDU Knights, they weren't so bad either. The Knights kept their 2 opponents under 60 points in each contest. So the Blue Devils, the Knights, they're turning up the temperature on the defensive end, and the result, they're moving up the standings.
All right, Ralph, well, we took a look at where the teams stand, but now let's look at where some of the players stand amongst national leaders.
Well, these are the same 2 names that we heard last week, Kyle, and actually, these 2 women have been amongst the national leaders the entire season. We start with Wagner's Jasmine Andre. She actually climbed up a spot to number 2 on the NCAA leaderboard in scoring average. Nawaje had an unbelievable week, 84 points in 80 minutes of playing time, 53-point performance against Sacred Heart, an NEC women's basketball record in conference play, and it's also the most points, 53, that any Division I player has scored in a game this season. So Jasmine Nawaje keeps climbing. She finished number 2 in scoring last year. She's number 2 now. Can she get to that top spot? That's something we'll watch as the season continues. Jessica Kovach now, St. Francis U freshman. She's 2nd in the league in scoring, top 10 in the nation, number 1 freshman scorer in Division I. That hasn't changed since last week. And she continues to lead all Division I shooters in 3-point field goals made. She's an assassin from behind the arc. So Nawaje, Kovach, where do they stand? Near the top of the NCAA leaderboard, and I'm going to say that won't be changing anytime soon.
All right, Ralph, well, hopefully Nawaje and Kovach can remain amongst the national leaders for the rest of conference play. But Ralph, let's take a Twitter timeout real quick.
Yeah, I need a 30 to be honest with you. This week, we feature a tweet from the Staten Island Advance Sports Department, the daily newspaper over on Staten Island. Recently ran a feature story, perfectly timed by the way, on Jasmine Nawaje, her effect on the program, and her part in Lisa Sermignano's grander vision and grander plan to build something special, to build a winner at Wagner. I must say, Cormac Gordon, longtime columnist for the Advance, did a phenomenal job on this piece, really giving some great insight, goes deep into the thoughts of Jasmine Andre. She opens up, shares some great information, and it's a piece that I highly recommend to all basketball fans. So get over to SILive.com, check it out. Cormac Gordon on the scoring sensation that is Jasmine Andre.
All right, well, Nawaje is definitely turning heads with her play. But, Ralph, let's take a look ahead now. What are some of the games you got for me coming up?
Well, first, Kyle, before we take a look ahead, I want to take a quick look back. If we can go to our favorite play of the week segment. As always, I like to share one top play that caught my eye from the past week in Northeast Conference women's basketball. This week, it comes from the league-leading Bryant Bulldogs. And in particular, it shows the versatility of Brianna Rucker. Rucker, the senior forward, is of course the reigning NEC Women's Basketball Player of the Year. She's a double-double machine. She's one of the league leaders in rebounding, over 10 boards per game. But this play shows she's not only dangerous down on the block, she's dangerous at the top of the key because of her court vision. She sees Morgan Olander down low with the mismatch in good position, delivers the crisp pass. It's an easy 2-point bucket for the Bryant Bulldogs. Nice job there as well on the finish by Morgan Olander. She's a veteran and she's been contributing 7.7 points per game off the bench. So Rucker to Olander, a veteran connection. That, folks, was my favorite play of the week.
All right, that was Ralph's play of the week. It also made the NEC 9. But Ralph, now let's look ahead. What do you got for me some matchups this week?
And don't forget to remind them to check out the NEC 9 every week at necfrontrow.com, of course. The look ahead. 3 matchups in particular that I would like to focus on this week. We start on Saturday. It's Bryant and Sacred Heart, the battle for first place. The winner of the game will obviously be in first place after the fact. If Bryant wins 9-0 at the halfway point of the schedule, if Sacred Heart were to win, both teams would be 8-1. Of course, Sacred Heart would hold the head-to-head tiebreaker for now until the two teams meet again later on in the season. But that's the matchup right there. Bryant and Sacred Heart. Bulldogs lead the Northeast Conference in field goal percentage at .409. Sacred Heart, they're second in shooting the basketball, connecting at a .406 clip. So the top 2 teams in the standings, the top 2 teams shooting the basketball as well. You'll have to go to Front Row for that one because our featured ESPN 3 game of the week is on Monday. And lucky for Bulldogs fans, Bryant will be featured in that Monday night marquee matchup. The Bulldogs take on Central Connecticut, a regional rival. Also, Central and Bryant, these were number 1 and number 2 last year in the Northeast Conference standings. They actually tied for first place, but Bryant wound up getting the number 1 seed with the tiebreaker. So 2 teams that match up well against one another. A lot of the same characters are back from last year when these teams battled down the stretch. So Bryant, Central Connecticut in the ESPN 3 game of the week. The third matchup, I want to crank it back to Saturday, and this will be Robert Morris against St. Francis U. 2 5-3 teams locked in a tie for third place in the league standings. They both were swept this past weekend as they made the trip through New England, losing to both Bryant and CCSU. So now Robert Morris and St. Francis, they're both back in the Keystone State, and they will both look to get back on the winning track. Over the past 10 weeks, Robert Morris and St. Francis U have been the two best three-point shooting teams in the conference. And Robert Morris in particular, it has led the league in three-point field goal percentage, but the Colonials did not shoot the ball well on the road this past week. Can they regain that shooting touch? We'll see. And I know I said only 3 matchups, but there's just one more. Going back to Monday, Wagner and St. Francis Brooklyn, they meet for the second time in a week. Of course, Wagner took down the Terriers in last week's ESPN featured game. So they'll have the grudge match this Monday in Brooklyn Heights, and you can catch that one at necfrontrow.com.
All right, Ralph, well, those are some great matchups, but fans, don't forget you can catch all the other matchups live on necfrontrow.com. For Ralph Ventre, I'm Kyle Turner, and this has been your NEC On The Run podcast talking women's basketball. We'll see you again next week.